I used meth every day for 6 months and hid it from everyone. I live a normal life, mid-30s, engaged, 1 dog, no kids. I did lines first thing in the morning, in the bathroom at work, in the bathroom at home, in my car, wherever. I assume I hid it very well. I stopped when the person I got it from moved out of state. It's been about 3 months since then, and I am very scared that I likely fucked up my brain chemistry. Of course, I wish I never did this. Edit. Thank you for all the encouraging words, everyone. Thank you for sharing your experiences with me and for the advice and well wishes. I get it now. People noticed something, but I was never questioned, so in my mind I thought I was hiding it super well, but I'm wrong. After reading your comments, it's very likely people knew something was going on. It's a horrible feeling, but it's the truth. Anyway, thanks again.
It's worth mentioning that, while the acute withdrawal stage is the really scary hump that motivates someone most strongly to stay in active addiction, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, or PAWS, is very real, and it can affect someone for up to 2 to 3 years, especially with a drug that surges dopamine as strong as meth. This can include people, places, things, or activities, triggering strong cravings for drug use, realistic depictions and visions of drug use in dreams, irregular sleep, severe depression or anxiety, extreme cravings coming randomly, and much more. These symptoms are much more manageable than acute withdrawal, and they're absolutely not a reason to give up and say you're powerless. But knowing the signs of pause can let someone know they're not crazy, they're not alone. They may want to consider long-term support groups or individual counseling of some kind, or even just knowing they're not stuck thinking about their addiction for eternity. It's very normal to think about these things for years. It will become more manageable with time, like you said. I just thought that was worth adding on. Sorry for the hijack. Edit. OP should be very, very proud. You've got half the time of your addiction under your belt living in recovery now. You've got this, brother. If anything ever happens, don't get down on yourself. Remember, you have immense willpower and skills dedicated to your recovery, and recovery is always waiting, whether or not that recovery journey ends up linear.
I made a fool out of the rich kid with a nut and never told him the truth. Setting the stage, 4th grade, elementary school in an expensive rural area. Town dominated by wildly privileged multimillionaires who made flaunting their wealth a competition, even in elementary school contexts. One multi-millionaire parent in particular stood out in the worst ways. To put that in perspective, her idea of volunteering to provide materials for classroom activities was bringing brand new cases of Prismacolor pencils and Premier pens, and then spending the day angstily micromanaging every single child's use of them because they were expensive. Her idea of a field trip was to have the entire class bust to her multi-million-dollar mansion to show off her numerous sculptures and tennis courts. Her son bragged that they owned work by Van Gogh. It was as absurd as it sounds. A bunch of elementary school-aged kids being walked around someone's private home to look at sculptures that supposedly should have belonged in museums. Anyway, her son, as you might imagine, picked up on this money a personal value attitude really fast, to the point where he'd done things like spontaneously find $100 bills on the playground during recess, which he'd then run around to show off to other kids, including me, on a repeat basis. Me! I lived in the back of a garage at that point in my childhood, so I had to bone to pick with Mr. Look at my money. One day, I'd eaten what was either a peach or a plum, I believe, and I was examining the pit carefully. I marveled at nature and science, and then at how it reminded me of a walnut, and that was when inspiration struck. I cleaned it thoroughly, took it to school in a baggie, and then told the rich kid that it was a walnut I couldn't seem to crack. That boy proceeded to spend the rest of the day trying to crack the nut for me in absolutely hysterical ways. He used a stack of history textbooks and dropped them. When it didn't work, he added more books and repeated. He then stacked chairs together and angled the nut under the feet to stomp on them. He then added books on top of the chairs and repeated the experiments. He threw the nut, he body slammed it, he punched it, he had multiple kids sit on chairs at the same time to crush it. He, by all accounts, should have decimated that nut in the first 5 minutes. He endured for several hours. After a long and fruitless battle, he returned with the nut in hand, sincerely disappointed and apologetic that he couldn't open it for me. And I felt absolutely awful. He was behaving so damn unpleasant and shallow, but he was ultimately just another kid acting out his issues in his own way. And he had been so genuine about helping me crack that nut